so when, say, like the Bible's not specific about something, like, so clubbing isn't in the Bible as far as I know, but like, how do you know then if something is sin? Isn't it? Like, it's accepted in society, so is it fine? Like, how do you think you work out sort of what is and isn't sin?
Like, for that example of clubbing, so I don't think it is, but for me, I know that was my personal slippery slope to drinking too much, to flirting with men, and I'm a married woman now, so I don't want to be doing that. So that was my personal, so like, if you've struggled with alcohol issues, then you're not going to have a sip of wine and think, oh, well, I can just have this glass. Most people would just, no, not having any, because I don't want to go down that road.
Keep away from the edge.
That for me personally, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if it was you, Vicky, was saying about being born into sin. I don't know, Jerry, you touched on it as well. So that's like a huge concept. And like, so I've got Romans 5 open here. And so from verse 12, it says, therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. For sin indeed was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not counted where there is no law. Yet death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those whose sinning was not like the transgression of Adam, who was a type of the one who was to come. But the free gift is not like the trespass. For if many died through one man's trespass, much more have the grace of God and the free gift of grace of that one man, Jesus Christ, abounded for many. So it's this like picture of like, okay, so through Adam's sin in Genesis, right at the beginning of the Bible, all seem to be under this curse of sin. But like if you were talk to someone, you know, who maybe doesn't know the Lord, who doesn't come to church, whatever, they'd more than likely kind of go, well, I'm a good person. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like, why am I inherently bad? How do you engage with people in that? Like, who would go, well, why am I bad? Why was I born? Am I born into this?
Because like what I would deem as a swear word, my mum would have a different viewpoint. So the same as you saying, like someone who's just purely in the world, whatever. Trying to think of an example, but their sin would be totally different. It would be do not steal or something basic. So it's how do you get to knowing what sin really is I guess what we're here to discuss. But
let me like just lay it all out there. And potentially open a can of worms. We'll see. But if the wages of sin is death, which is what it says in the Bible, so our sin deserves death, and our belief as Christians is that death was paid for by Jesus. He died on our behalf, and he paid the wages of sin, so that we're bound by it no longer. So when someone if we're born into sin, so let's say like a little kid, and we believe that if you to die and don't know the Lord and have not, however you want to say it, made a decision for Jesus, whatever, if that's not something that you've done, you've not acknowledged Jesus, then you would be in an eternity without God. Okay, so let's say a little child who dies, okay, is there any one of us at this table who's going to go, well, tough? They didn't get, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So is it a case of, well, you're born into it, but it doesn't really take effect when you're little, and then at some point it kicks in, and then you have to make a decision, or like, do you know what I mean? I told you I was going to open a can of worms, but like, this is the thing, like, you've probably got people in your lives who have been through tragedy and all this sort of stuff, and they have these questions, and it's like they want to know, like, what's going on. So like, there you go.
if there's a God, why does this happen?
Yeah. Where are they now?
Yeah.
I think we're saying, like, because talking about being born into sin, I think to explain it to someone, I think you have to start from the beginning. So like with Adam and Eve, because obviously sin came from Adam and Eve because they disobeyed God. So I think we have to start from there, and because we all descend from them, it's been traveling through generation and generation. So we're the more we grow, the more like there's sin coming into the world, and the more the world changes, and the more beliefs or more like ideas come in, obviously more sin's gonna come in. So we're surrounded by loads of sin, and with being born into it, we have to find a way to turn the other way from it.
Because it can be hard to say, look at someone who you love, who's a great person, and go, you're inherently opposed to God. Like, even though like you're like so good and you do all these good things and stuff. So it's like a difficult thing to wrestle with.
Yeah, I think it was a quote the other week, a Tim Keller quote.
Tim Keller said, "The gospel says you are more sinful and flawed than you ever dared believe, but more accepted and loved than you ever dared hope."
And he said, we don't understand how sinful we really are, but we actually don't understand how gracious God is. And I think we would all like to go, well, I'm a good person. I think that I'm a good person. I do good things. Like I said before, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, Jesus, I want to live for you. But actually, I have some horrible thoughts, and I get really angry, and I shout at my children, and I sometimes say bad words to them. But so yeah, but we live in the grace of God, and just like on that, talking about that at what age do you have this awareness of God, and at what age is the turning point of, oh well, you know enough now that you're choosing your destiny. Like I was thinking about when did I have this revelation of Jesus, and I remember I was about 11 or 12, and just having this like, oh my goodness, yeah, Jesus, you're real. This is real. And I had a bit of a fear of like, well, I don't want to live without you, and I want to go to heaven. I want to live eternity with you. And then was reminded today of that verse in Proverbs where it says that the beginning of the fear of God is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. And so I feel like it was out of that place of actually understanding how big God is, and his authority, and his what's the word? Sovereignty. His sovereignty. There was like a fear there of, oh, God, you are huge and I am nothing. And like, what's my response in this moment going to be? And that was that moment that I put my hand up at this Christian event that I was at, and I believe it changed me eternity. And so yeah, I mean, don't know ultimately what the correct answer to that is, but for me, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of this stuff that, like, you want a cut and dry thing, but I suppose it would involve knowing the, like, immeasurable depths of God, which none of us are ever going to do.
Yeah.
Paul writes in his letter to the church in Rome, "Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and decisions, and how unfathomable and untraceable are his ways." So what do we do with this idea that some call original sin? So even among believers, there are some who believe we're born with a sinful nature, and others who believe we are inherently good. Regardless of where you land on this today, and maybe it's both, it's clear that since the beginning of time, God has allowed us the freedom to choose. And this has led to the world we now live in that is both beautiful and full of his glory and splendor, and extremely broken and tragic and in need of deep healing and salvation.
And that's kind of, I think, the same kind of journey as understanding who we are as human beings, living on planet Earth, understanding the nature that we have on us, that we were born into, and knowing that we get to that place where knowledge then becomes wisdom. And then from wisdom, you're still growing, So even making that first decision, there have been many decisions
Yeah, it's
in
a wrestle,
life.
isn't it? Yeah.
You're always going to make more decisions, It's like you can always remember the first time, when you made a conscious decision of how you love Jesus or wanting to follow Jesus and understanding what God's love is. And then, then another decade goes by, and then you grow deeper, you know, and then another decade, and I suppose it's wonderful how you shared about the fear of God, you know, and I remember even in my teens having an understanding of the fear of God, but then now the fear of God is completely different. Sure. My understanding of His awesomeness, you know, to His judgment, you know, maybe that's just what I heard a lot of the time, but now diving into a personal journey of understanding God for me, the more I know of Him is that His great love just pursues me. You know, He just pursues me on a daily basis, but just like all the time, you know. So then you're reading these stories in the Bible, you know, you're even reading the journey of Jesus, and you're understanding that everybody that had so-called knowledge didn't really know. Do you know what I mean? And then it was just for Him to break all of that down and say, all right, what you were trying to do, you know, doesn't really make any sense, because you're kind of understanding this life in your own, you know, thought pattern, and you're trying. You probably say this is me philosophizing life, you know, my wisdom of understanding and knowing life, you know. So, you know, from the Pharisees' point of view, this is what we know. But then Jesus is like, well, actually, you don't. Do you know what I mean? So it's, and I suppose we all go through that. This is what it is, do you know? And then you grow a little older, and then God's like, hey, man, I'm just saying. I know that you were quite passionate in your younger years, but through your indulgence of passion, you lost the main plot. You lost the plot, and the plot is just to love one another as I love you. Do you know? So let's start there.